Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have XYPN members Danna Jacobs and Rob Cologne on the show today. Danna and Rob are siblings that decided to launch a financial planning firm when they were in their mid-20s with no clients back in 2013. Rob had a background in tax planning and preparation, so they started by offering accounting services as a sort of side hustle to generate income, but also to get cross-referrals into the planning business. The tax business actually grew a lot faster than the planning side, but they're now about even in terms of revenue generated by each. We talked in depth about the brother-sister dynamic, and they are both extremely self-aware of their own strengths and weaknesses and those of the other, and have really put in a foundation to be successful together. Rob is the big thinking visionary, and Danna is the integrator, the one that keeps the wheels on the bus. And you can tell from the conversation that they need each other and that their partnership is leading to the success that they're having. Fun fact, what do many financial advisors have in common? They're often terrible at doing their own bookkeeping, and more importantly, they don't enjoy it. Enter the Bean team at FA Bean Counters, powered by XY Planning Network. There's no shame in falling behind in your books. We're all guilty of that from time to time. But if you're leaving money on the table because you haven't filed expenses correctly, you need the Bean team. Start cleaning up your books with a free chart of accounts template. Visit www.fabeancounters.com/XYPN radio to download your copy today. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/177. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Rob and Danna. Hey, Danna and Rob, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
We're happy to be here, Alan.
So I'm excited because I was just recollecting that we met for the first time 3 years ago at our first ever XYPN conference. So it was in Charlotte, which just seems like so long ago now, back in 2015. So I guess it's been 3 years, 4 conferences now. And it's been really exciting to watch the two of you build the business and to grow and, just all the things that you have going on. So give listeners just a quick overview, whoever wants to take it, sort of where business stands today, where you're located, sort of the two sides of your business, number of clients that you have, and then we'll dig into the details.
Okay, so to get started, Rob and I are siblings. We started the business back in 2013, and initially we always wanted to be financial planners. We're both CFPs, but what Alan was just referencing is we also started doing tax prep and accounting to sort of help as our side hustle to keep the lights on the wealth, financial planning, and investment management business when we first rolled out. And since then, both businesses have really grown. We've created a separate LLC for tax prep and accounting. And at this point, while we both collaborate on everything, Rob primarily runs the tax and accounting, and I primarily run wealth and investment management, but there's a ton of overlap between all of that. We just sort of have to divide and conquer as we go on to grow. On the planning side, and that's what probably most of you care more about, we have about 68 clients. It ebbs and flows. Some people are more upfront plans, and then they sort of go away for a little while and come back again, and some are active, ongoing all the time. But it started with one client, which was our grandfather. That was the first account that we brought over, right, Rob?
He seeded the company. So one client in 2013, and you've grown to 68 clients today. How many of those are sort of ongoing you're meeting with on a regular basis?
Honestly, the majority of them. Some of them, some clients we meet as often as every month, and others, it's probably about once a year, even though Rob says we try so hard to get folks in more often. And a lot of times they're like, oh, we're good. And they sort of punt it. So it really varies case by case.
And then how many, Rob, on the tax side, how many tax returns are you doing? And then how many sort of ongoing clients? Because y'all do, it sounds like bookkeeping and some other services. So sort of how does that break down?
Yeah, this past year we filed 262 tax returns. That's a combination of personal and business. We work with 71 small businesses on an ongoing basis, whether it be from, doing their books every month to just kind of being in the corner when they freak out and have a question or get a notice from the IRS and need someone to smooth things out. So,
what is this letter? It's just an address change letter. It's okay. I know it has the IRS's name on it. But yeah, every letter you get from the IRS, it freaks me out. And I especially love the adjustment letter of like, you overpaid by 62 cents. Like, okay.
You could have saved the postage and not let me know about it.
All right. So 262 tax returns. And you said that's a combo. How many of the clients are crossover that are leveraging both financial planning and the wealth management as well as the tax service that you have? Or are they really distinctly different in terms of the clients you're serving?
No, there's a good amount of overlap. And it goes both ways. A client may have found us for financial planning services and then, oh, actually, I really like you guys and my guy's kind of old. And so, we want someone, new and fresh to do our taxes. Sure, we'll take that on. And then on the other side, sometimes people find us on the accounting side and say, oh, I didn't know you guys were financial planners. Well, I have this amount of money sitting over here, or I have, this planning issue that, no one will talk to me about. Sure. Yeah. Let's have a conversation about that and sit down. So it kind of goes both ways. In terms of the percentage of overlap, I don't really have good information on that. Danna's kind of the metrics on that kind of stuff. So do you have an estimate?
Yeah, I'm actually just scanning through my list and just like a ballpark. It looks like about a third to maybe even a little bit more of our planning clients we're actually working with on the accounting side of the business as well. If it, some of it's just tax prep, some is because they are business owners and we're helping on ongoing accounting. But there is a good amount of cross referral, like Rob said, between both businesses, which has been really exciting for us.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually the early client for us was a lot of small business owner mixing my personal financial life with my business finances, wanting to create some segregation and separation. And how do I not spend every dollar that's deposited into the bank account, knowing that I may have a few dry months and, this uneven cash flow, these estimated tax payments, and maintaining a budget and paying down debt and using that all wisely. So that was there was a lot more crossover initially with the small business owners. So that's where we see a lot more planning and tax accounting needs all in one.
And the other thing that Rob always mentions too is it's a lot easier to refer out an account like a tax preparer or an accountant than it is a financial planner. So a lot of people will very quickly say to their buddies, oh, so-and-so does taxes, call Rob, he's great. And then from there, once we see their full tax return, then, we sometimes see a financial planning opportunity. And so we have a further conversation. So it's a lot easier referral stream, I think, on the tax prep accounting side for the business owners and folks that we're doing the tax preparation for.
Which makes sense because we all have to file our taxes. We know we should go talk to an expert and not just, TurboTax it because, even professionals, we screw that stuff up when we're going through our own stuff. So, it makes sense it is a much easier referral because it's something we all know we have to do. Whereas financial planning is sort of this, fuzzy, intangible, service that it's hard to define until you've experienced it. And so, which is it's a little tougher of a referral to make. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So talk to me just about sort of career path and what led the two of you down this path. So Danna, you said that, you always wanted to be a financial planner. Was that really sort of coming out of college? Was that the career path you were set on going down?
It's funny because like our dad actually was going to sit for the CFP when we were kids. And it's this nebulous event that I vaguely remember happening. And then I remember my parents at one point sitting down with me. I think we were in I don't even know, an Applebee's or something. And they said, you should be a CFP one day. And those things happened, but then it didn't fully formalize the idea for me until I then went to college. I, went to a liberal arts school. I got an economics and Italian double major. And then I ended up working at a traditional broker dealer as my first job in an operations analyst role. And then from there, it all sort of came full circle. So I actually was working at Lehman Brothers. So I joined in 2007.
Perfect timing. So it was your fault is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I always say, I feel terrible saying that Lehman Brothers bankruptcy was a great thing. For the world at large, it was not. For me personally in my career, I have to say it did present a great opportunity. They were doing a lot of very traditional reconciliation there at the time, and they needed, when we had that really high volume, that redemptions mostly, pre and during bankruptcy, they needed someone who'd think a little differently, to get really creative. I developed a bunch of Excel macros to be able to reconcile the large volume of transactions that were coming in. I was able to apply that to other desks other than the desk I was working on. I got a lot more exposure. And then post bankruptcy, when we did get bought out by Barclays, we had to revamp our whole platform. So then I was working with, the developers and, IT, as well as our marketing departments, and then our sales, to get everyone really on board with what the new platform is. And so for me, I just, like I said, got a ton of exposure, and eventually landed on the wealth and investment management desk. And that was when, it's very sales driven and very commission driven, a very similar story that we hear for a lot of traditional broker dealers. Not saying they're all like that, but that was my experience. And also being a woman in industry, I saw what a lot of the other women had to go through. And it was really difficult for them to balance the family and the business. And I'm always one to work hard, but I wanted to do it more on my terms in a way that I can envision for my future. And then in the meanwhile, ever since we were kids, Rob and I always joked about like working together, running a business together. But again, that all was very nebulous until I was having this work experience working with our clients, but it was very sales driven. And a lot of our clients were ultra high net worth clients. They had a certified financial planner running their family office. And here am I talking about a specific product, but the CFP was on the other end of the line, helping the client understand their broader needs and like how this would fit into their greater financial plan. And I thought that was awesome. And I wanted to be in that role. And so that's when I was going back for my MBA. I went back for my CFP and went ahead and sort of said, this is what I want to do. And again, we were young. We saw all of our friends trying to figure out all these financial decisions, saw the opportunity as well with the business owners and entrepreneurs that we were seeing, trying to balance all the needs Rob cited too. And we just sort of said, this is an opportunity here. We can create a business. We thought we were making it up because we didn't find you yet, Alan. You guys were also making it up at the same time.
Yeah, we were making it up too.
And so we just sort of said, let's do sort of a fee for service. We initially didn't have an upfront plan because we just honestly hadn't thought of it yet. And we were doing mostly monthly retainer models. And that was sort of working. And Rob, do you want to jump in, Rob, and just tell your little part of the story of why you felt the need to move in this direction?
So I was working on the investment management side, much lower minimums than what Danna was dealing with, $500,000 and up. But to Danna's point, there were so many other areas of advice that our clients, we couldn't serve them. And working in the traditional BD setting, there was a lot of limitations about what I could even talk about or touch and how I could be compensated. And we just didn't feel it was the best setting for us to work within to provide this holistic financial planning that we had sought out to deliver to our clients, especially around the tax side. The BD was very careful about me even touching that world.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So it was funny. We're both kind of having these same realizations around the same time. And like Danna said, growing up, we were always very close. Danna was like my second mother. She's the one who, taught me to tie my shoes and read before kindergarten because she didn't want me to be the dumbest kid in school. So, we're having these conversations and we said, okay, let's figure this out. And like Danna said, we really didn't know what it was going to look like. We actually got in a room with my wife, Danna's husband, my parents. We rented out a conference space and we sat down. We had a brainstorm meeting about this is what we're thinking about. It's crazy, but we're going to give it a shot. And we got feedback and what that firm looked like, even though same company, what that looked like compared to now is so dramatically different. We changed up a lot of things in the first 2.5 years, a lot as a result of, attending conferences and stuff like that. So I credit you guys, but yeah. And here we are today with what we feel is a really good process and product that we're proud of and happy with and constantly refining, but a very, very strong basis.
So going into business with a sibling is difficult, right? And while it's sort of this two-edged, right? There's pros and cons because you know each other, you trust each other, you grow up with each other, you can finish each other's sentences. But then the flip side being like, how do you manage lines, both lines inside the business of, who owns what and therefore like who gets to make decisions, or is everything truly joint, as well as personal in that you don't just want to be talking business when you're on family vacation or maybe you do. So with the business and the personal, how do you keep those two separate? How do you maintain the lines that need to be in place without overstepping while also benefiting from the fact that you are siblings working in a business together?
Yeah. So Danna and I are two completely opposite people. So we definitely have our skill sets and we kind of know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are. And we're pretty good about, Danna being the detail oriented, type A personality. She's doing a lot of the, just the organization and management, putting the systems in place. And I'm kind of the more creative big picture. So I'll have the out of the box type of ideas that Danna generally writes down on a list. And if they come back around a few times, then she'll like actually entertain one of them.
Very true.
So, in terms of, keeping the personal and business separate, and like you said, it's part of it is, not talking business at a family function, but also when there are family issues like we have had in years of being in business, not letting that interfere too much with our work. I think we've done a relatively good job. We really don't, even if we're having a work disagreement or something like that, it does not at all affect, Caden's first birthday party or something like that. Whenever we are together as a family, we do try and create that boundaries. Not to say, hey, did you get back on so-and-so's email, or so-and-so, we need to do this reminder. There might be those quick comments, but for the most part at a family event, we try and keep the business separate. And, one of the perks of working with a sibling is we really don't have to worry so much about quote unquote office politics or anything like that. We know at the end of the day, there's a tremendous amount of love between Danna and I, and we know that we want the best for each other. So, even in the moments that, you have a disagreement about a direction you want to take the business or something like that, you can always reconcile it.
Yeah. I honestly think we do a good job of separating the two and for me, again, especially I'm a mom, I was a woman in business, still am, but of course it looks different when it's your own business. Having the family is a big part, and doing this for the family is a huge, huge motivation of why we're even running the business the way we are and why we even started the business. So we definitely do a good job of letting business issues be business issues and family issues be family issues. And regardless, Rob is always my partner in both of those, and they each have their own channels and lanes. And even I always say this too, like I know when he's going to tell me something that he knows my answer to already, and he knows my answers are no. It's always the, so Dan, and I could just hear it. And I'm just like, what, Rob? And then that like you already know how that conversation is going to go. And that's fine. And that's very much, how we work. And we know that we're polar opposites, and we also know how each other think, and we balance it all out. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Have either of you read the book Rocket Fuel?
Have not. No.
Nope.
All right. I would highly recommend it because the two of you have what they call visionary and integrator personalities. And so it's really interesting because Raul, our COO, many listeners now know that the COO here at XY Planning Network is actually my brother. We have different last names, so people get thrown off, which I guess y'all do too. So, but people are never quite sure there. But they sort of map out the visionary and the integrator. And the visionary is the big picture, always thinking about the next move. And the integrator is the one who actually implements the vision. And it's this really cool dynamic because people think like, all the glory goes to the visionary because they're like, oh, they were the one with a great idea, but visionaries are useless without an integrator. I mean, they're useless without someone to actually help them implement, and vice versa. Implementers really need that visionary in the room to help drive things forward so they don't get stuck. It's actually the same relationship that Walt Disney and his older brother, who no one's ever heard of. Walt Disney was Disney, right? He was the visionary, but his older brother is the one who actually ran the company and made sure that Walt didn't bounce checks, which is really interesting. So it's a great book. I recently read it and thought it was really cool. It's sort of seeing that dynamic that you two seem to be building out organically and naturally without recognizing that someone has built an entire system around your two personalities working together. So it's really cool. Do you have anything formal on like, what tasks and responsibilities each of you have? Or is it sort of, you just sort of know in your gut what each one's going to do? Or have you formalized that, Danna?
So pretty much I create the tasks for both of us. But from that, we created a whole system where I get the information that of the work that Rob needs to be addressing from both him, his wife works with us. We really keep it all in the family. So we collaborate that and we help assign out and schedule out. I typically assign out to him what he needs to be doing, and I take everything else and I loop him in when necessary, of course. Everything client facing on the planning side, we collaborate on, and he gets copies of and reviews and always offers input and says, hey, how about this? And I'm like, oh, I never would have thought of it that way. But then I will do a lot of the planning analysis. I work with the power planner, with our admin on an ongoing basis to try to, work both on management stuff internally and then, of course, the client deliverables. So it's mostly to divide and conquer. I focus on planning. He focuses on tax and accounting, but then we collaborate on big picture things. And he is involved in all of the client related work that we're doing on the planning side. And then I'm involved on the management side on the tax and accounting. Does that sort of categorize it for you?
It does. What system do you use to assign tasks around?
Do you want to know our latest system? Because we have had.
I want an in-depth review of every system. Yeah, I haven't found a good one, so I'm actually curious for myself. Like, what do you use in order to be sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be working on? So it depends. We have two different systems. We use Wealthbox for planning because I happen to like Wealthbox. I know a lot of people have, their issues with it, but I think it can work really well, and they are working to integrate more and more there. So I do use Wealthbox, and I do like Wealthbox, and that's primarily what we use to collaborate with like our power planner, admin, et cetera. Again, on the problem with using any CRM system with Rob is that he doesn't like to have to use it. Right. You have to actually open the app. Yeah. That's my problem as well.
So pretty much we're using Todoist right now, and I manage it for him. So we have an email account that's literally Rob's to-do email account. So it's, Inspired Vision to-do at inspiredvision.tax, the name of the accounting business. And we send all of his to-dos is just like emails going into that. And then I assign it to Todoist with like a date and and any other notes. And then I send that to Rob every morning what his daily to-dos are. Then he inevitably never tells me what he does or doesn't do. Sometimes he goes into Todoist and checks it off, but it ebbs and flows. So then once a week we sit down and we also like reprioritize his Todoist to-do list. Does that make sense?
It does. You truly have to read the book Rocket Fuel, because when you read it, you're going to be like, this is the two of us. Because like managing the visionary personality is a huge part of the integrator's job. And I want to be clear, if you haven't read the book, it's very easy to make for that integrator role to seem like less than. But there's actually fewer integrators than there are visionaries out there, which is really interesting. So integrators are more unique and more desperately needed even than those of us that are more on the big picture side. But Raul is not currently sending me tasks. I wish he would. So I'm going to send him this podcast.
Raul's going to call me and be like, Danna.
Yeah. Every now and then he's like, some days I don't know if I'm a COO or an admin assistant, but I'm a well-paid admin. So, okay. So you said you have the admin and a paraplanner. So the admin is Rob's wife. And then you also have a paraplanner. Is that person full-time?
Oh, so we have, on the planning side, we have an admin and a paraplanner. That's not Rob's wife. Okay. And they're both part-time. They're both mostly virtual. Our admin does live local, but it's primarily a virtual job for her. And so she does more administrative stuff for the business, as you could assume. And then our power planner does a lot more of the data entry, plan presentation preps kind of stuff for us. And that's on the planning side. And then on the accounting side, we have a bookkeeper. And then, Rob, how would you categorize Nicole?
She might listen to this, so I got to be careful.
I know.
Beautiful, smart, funny.
She is all of the above. Talented. I mean, she can sing like it's nobody's business. But yes.
Yeah, I would call her a junior accountant pretty much. She handles all of the bookkeeping side of the business. And once again, anything that's really detailed overwhelms me very, very easily. So it's like filling out this paperwork, for whatever. If there's a long application that needs to be sent in, she handles all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And, I love the dynamic that the two of you have in terms of accepting strengths and accepting weaknesses. I think this is something that's a real struggle for entrepreneurs because when you're solo, you have to wear every hat and you don't have the luxury of saying like, oh, I'm not doing the detail work. I'll let the other person do this. Or, I am going to do the detail work. I'll let the other person handle big picture stuff. Like you have to do it all yourself, which I think traps us into believing that we can be everything. And you just can't. I mean, you're going to suck at the majority of things that you do when you're the only one doing them. You just have to slowly hand those things off. So I love that you sort of you took the opportunity to already split out all of those duties, which is really cool because now you can say who's great at what and really own that. And that's okay.
That is something that we are constantly trying to get even a little bit better at because there's a ton of stuff that I do on a daily basis that I'm not the greatest at. So that's actually our current process. Nicole, myself, and Danna all more accurately tracking what we're spending all of our day doing. Because like we put all these hours in and we're like, what did we get done? And seeing like what we can, delegate out to either outsource it or, internally put it on someone else's plate.
Yeah. And with that said, a lot of what's come to be at this point, I don't think we necessarily formally had a process. Like this is the first time we're tracking our time and trying to actually figure it out. A lot of it just in the very beginning, Rob and I did everything together, every application together, every researching, every next business move together. And then as we got busier, it just sort of intuitively fell in each other's laps. So now this is the first time we're trying to put a system around it and we'll sort of see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time you've had to, and those things are okay as well. I think some of us do, not me, some of you that tend to be more operations process minded, we do have a tendency to over systematize or over process things before we have to. So sometimes it's like, oh, no, we need to decide exactly how this is going to work. And it's like, no, what we need to do is go get clients. And when you go get clients, come back and then we'll talk about how we're going to systematize it, which, it's just the natural reality of how the business grows. I'm curious how the tax business got started. So I guess where did that idea come from on, hey, this will be a really great side hustle? Or was that business already in place whenever you decided to launch the financial planning firm?
No. So when I was working in the investment management practice on the BD side, pursuing my CFP exam, there was really 2/5 of the exam that was tax-based. And that's obviously the tax part. And then really estate, most of the estate part is tax.
Yeah, it's tax.
And
yep.
I knew nothing about that. So I said, well, how am I going to learn it? And you could, obviously study the review books and all that kind of stuff.
Which is what I would have done. But Rob instead goes and
at the time, my current wife at that time, girlfriend's parents are both CPAs. And so I went to my now father-in-law and I said, Phil, can I just sit next to you and watch what it is that you do? And he was like, I'll do you one better. I'm drowning with work. I need the help. Come work with me. So I started working with him probably 6 months, I guess, before we launched our firm. And then when we opened up the doors and I was still working with him on a part-time basis, and I still to this day do help him out during tax season, give him 1 or 2 days a week. So when we opened our doors and, our grandfather was the only client who was paying us. We're like, okay, well, let's try and figure something out. Well, I have this other skill set, knowing how to do bookkeeping and tax prep services. Let's throw that out there. And like we said earlier, it's very, very easy to get clients on that side. And that business grew actually a lot faster than the financial planning business did. Now they are, from a revenue standpoint, about evenly matched. But that was, just a much quicker grow initially.
It's interesting and kind of funny whenever you say, that they were drowning in work. I've never met a bored accountant. I've never met an accountant. It's like, what I get to do all day? Just like hang out. Because, the deadlines and it's just always busy. And so I know of a lot of financial planning firms that have this idea, they first start out, they're doing taxes, but it's so cyclical that, the spring you're just drowning in taxes and what you really want to be doing is skiing. And, and then all of a sudden you have a lull and then you're super busy in October and it's really hard to keep up with the financial planning with these just waves, feel like tidal waves of work. So how are y'all balancing, I guess, is it just that, Rob, you're doing all the taxes. So that's your life. Is it ebbs and flows and you have busy times and slow times and that's how you sort of keep everything balanced, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I haven't been snowboarding in about 5 years, which has been painful. But every year I tell my wife, I said, this year I'm going to get back out there. I'm going to hit the slopes again, but maybe this year. And a lot of people do ask me about, young planners, even at the conference. I got a few people approach me. Do you think it's a smart idea to start up this tax prep business like you have? And I always say, you just got to be careful, because without Danna, well, first of all, organizing me and keeping everything streamlined. I mean, you have to be so efficient with your time, to make it all work. From a planning perspective, we try and make our quarterly meetings not coincide with that first quarter of the year, although difficult to do. But yeah, to a certain extent, Danna's doing even a little bit more heavy lifting during those times on the planning side than I am, and she's jumping in a little bit more on the tax side, just keeping me organized. But we just kind of know. I mean, last year from December 26th to April 18th, I took one day off. I worked 7 days a week, and it was a minimum of 12-hour days, some 24-hour days. There was a period of 36 hours where I was in the office just working. I felt like back in college, cramming time. Yeah, so it's just a lot of work and just trying to be really efficient. And that's where I have Danna to help me out, because once again, not what I do well.
So going forward, I'm going to jump ahead. I mean, is the hope and the goal to scale both of these businesses, or do you think will the tax practice just sort of level off? Are you going to scale it back, or do you want to scale both of these businesses to, sort of see how far you can take both of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely want to scale both. I think what we're at, and Rob will speak to this more, is the crux on the accounting side is we will need to be hiring and outsourcing more in order. There's only so many hours in tax season, and Rob is very much at full tilt. So that's the problem on the tax side. And then on the planning side, I think we can actually continue to do what we're doing without, and just if anything, we leverage more hours of our existing part-time staff. And it seems more scalable for the near-term future. Obviously, there'll be, of course, another shift at some point down the line. But yeah, I think for now we're still in growth mode.
Yeah, and that's why that's why we're so closely tracking all of our time and seeing, because it's just at this point, how can we spend more time in front of clients? Because that's the part of planning that we need to be involved in. But there are so many things that we are doing that we don't need to be. So that's why we're really trying to be efficient with our time and figure out how we can do more of the thing that we want to do and not so much the stuff that we don't want to.
So Danna, back on the wealth management side. So y'all got started. It sounds like, both of these businesses got started right around the same time, started to grow. Talk to me about the growth and sort of where the initial wave of clients, obviously grandfather, hey, that one makes sense. How about clients 2 through 68? Where have you seen success early on? And then, sort of as you've continued to grow now 5 years into the business, almost 6 years, I guess, in getting clients onboarded? Yeah,
for some reason that we can't really figure out, we do have really good SEO. And so between the different, you gave us access to NAPFA through XY Planning Network, and then obviously XY's Find a Planner and the FPA network, the fee only network. And then in the very beginning, we were the only Rob, we were 2 of 3 CFPs in Jersey City.
Correct.
We were 2 of 3 CFPs in Jersey City. And Jersey City is really a perfect target market for us because we're looking for entrepreneurs or business owners and or Henrys, high earning, not rich yet. So we really had a great target market there. So if you Google Jersey City, CFP, that really somehow worked. And Rob and I were, 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 of the 3 that were out there. That of course has changed, but
now there's 5 XYPN members in Jersey City.
Literally in our building is 4 of the
5. We've had someone on recently that said they were in your building. We apologize for creating the competition in your neighborhood.
No, actually, Eric, I think it was probably Eric who was on with you. He approached us and, he was working at his firm and said, thinking about stepping out. I said, you got to check out XYPN and you should check out this office space. And he did. And now he's literally across the hall. So I can count the amount of times he goes to the bathroom during the day.
And we have folks come and sit with us saying, oh, we also talked to someone else. And we're like, oh, is it Eric? And they're like, yeah. We're like, oh, whatever is the best fit, you can't go wrong. I mean, we believe very much in the XY mentality that there's enough clients out there for all of us. And we just want people to find the best fit. Rob and I, we have this crazy little sibling dynamic thing going on. We're back and forth between one another. It's really, I think it's great, especially for our young couples who come in, because Rob and I process very differently. And many, many times when you get married, you don't marry someone who thinks exactly the same way you do. And so the balance that Rob and I have is similar to a lot of times the balance we see across the table with the couples. And so it helps us sort of work through either the emotional side of financial planning or the how to strategize this. One way I would explain it might not resonate with one partner, and Rob will say, we'll think of it this way. And he'll be like, oh, I get that. Or she'll get she'll get the way Rob was thinking. And so that works really well for some people. And so it's really just about for us. And, when we first launched, Rob and I were almost afraid to tell people we were young and that we were siblings. And so, we were 25 and 28, I think, at the time. And so we were trying to almost hide that at first. And now we've gotten to the point where we're embracing it. And we're just saying, we are who we are. We might be a little different than most financial advisors, and that's okay. So if this works for you, awesome. And if not, I'll point you in the right direction to try to find someone else who is a better fit for you. So it was, a lot of that. And then also to initially answer your question, we did have some family friends who joined on with us at first, and then a lot of referrals, and it just sort of built pretty organically from there. Rob, you would agree, I think that most money we invested in marketing, if you will, sort of was a waste in our perspective. We didn't get the return that we saw just from cultivating our networks and from trying to give really good client service.
Yeah. And I don't think we've really spent much money at all in any advertising. So yeah, to Danna's point, kind of right place, right time. And we're working with 68 clients on right now, but we do a lot of upfront plans. Somebody will come, we'll work with them for a few months, get them through the planning process, and then send them on their way. So we've touched a lot more than 68, plans at this point, and the referral business for us has been relatively strong.
So now you're starting to see clients referring new clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even people we haven't talked to in a year. Either they come back wanting a refresher or to revisit the plan because they had a kid, they want to move, they're changing jobs. Obviously these things happen, and that's great. Or, those people are coming, we're getting a referral and someone says, oh, it's from so-and-so. And we're like, oh, that's lovely. How are they doing? Because we might not have heard from them as of late, which is great too.
So you said, that you really enjoy working with entrepreneurs. What percentage of your client base falls into that? Are you sort of holding it out as that's your niche and those are the clients you're working with? Or are you finding more of a broad-based client base just because more of the, organic growth of the firm is sort of a little broader?
Yeah, we're going to get kicked out of XYPN because we don't have a niche right now.
Half of XYPN does not have a niche, so that's okay. I can pull up the benchmarking survey to show why that's a bad thing, but no, I'm kidding. Y'all are clearly making it work without it. So, it's one of those things we think is good business practice, but there's plenty of ways to do it without one. So,
yeah, so it is because we do have that, like I said, because we can be a little bit more tax focused, which is frequently a concern. A larger percentage of our client base does happen to be entrepreneurs, but it's not something we're holding ourselves out as being. But once again, so-and-so started up this little company by mistake and they're doing pretty well and they need some help. And so we help them. And then they're in a community of other people who made mistakes and started these businesses by accident and found themselves needing more advice. And they're saying, you got to talk to Rob and Danna. So that's kind of why that has happened, but not a clearly defined niche, I would say.
I loved working with those types of clients. Y'all have gone one step further, which is doing taxes. I never did taxes because, again, ski season. But the conversation around the business and the personal and how they're so linked, and yet they need separation, but they're so inextricably linked that when you're talking about something in the business, you're inevitably talking about something in their personal finances as well. And just, having those conversations and you said it, and jokingly, but like it's so true that, people accidentally start businesses. Like they start doing this thing, they start making some widget or providing some service, and suddenly, more people are asking for it, and suddenly they have a job, and they never meant to be an entrepreneur. They never meant to own a business. And, you're uniquely positioned to help them, with both the family's finances as well as the business finances, as well as just like helping them be better entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because the personal and business are so interconnected. More often than not, Danna and I are trying to create systems to separate them out a bit. Like even, for a lot of our clients, obviously, an emergency fund is part of every single plan that we do. But then we'll have a secondary emergency fund for those small business owners, particularly ones, who are in real estate, let's say, who do have seasonality to their business or something like that. We'll have an emergency fund for their business. We'll try and set them up on a system because, it's somewhat easier to budget and plan when, you're getting your paycheck every other week. But, for business owners, that's not the case. So people are saying, oh, well, I made, $100,000 this year in my business. Well, that was your gross revenue, right? But you had business expenses and everything like this. So you can't set a budget based off of $100,000 of income, right? Far too often they are too linked in our clients' minds. So we're trying to create those systems and separation to really, have one not so greatly impact the other.
It's a great point that, they are linked and therefore you need to get them separated. It's just, you can't talk about one without talking about the other. And I see the same thing you mentioned earlier was, at the end of the quarter, it's like, how much money is left over? Great. Like getting a bonus here. And it's like, no. If you want to run the business as a business, you leave that money in the business and you keep reinvesting. And, how are you going to manage all of that? So I do think entrepreneurs are their own. We are our own animal. We're a difficult client base. There are a lot of advisors that don't want to work with people like us just because, we tend to be stupid in our risk taking and reinvest everything in the business and never actually save for retirement. And, all the things that we tell our clients to not do, we do. So, it does take a special personality and a certain skill set and just overall planning style to be able to deal with small business owners.
Yep.
So talk to me about sort of the current service model and pricing structure. So, I'm a new advisor I'm a new prospective client off the street coming in. How do you determine sort of overall fees, and what is your process for delivering a financial plan to that client initially?
So it evolved. In the very beginning, we didn't even have an upfront model or upfront cost, I should say, for our plan. But as we noticed, a lot of the work is upfront, and also the client needs to be highly involved. And when there was no fee upfront, we were having a harder time with getting that level of involvement that we were sort of seeking. So then we find XY, and we're like, upfront fee, that makes so much sense. And so we started implementing. And our first upfront fee was what, $100, Rob?
Wow,
Maybe.
You went all in.
I think it might have been 200, to be honest.
Okay, maybe it was 200. So we were like, is someone really going to pay us that in the very beginning without us having done anything? And we gradually increased it over time. And so now our model is it's an upfront financial plan. For most individuals, it's about $2,400 and couples $3,000. That consists of 4 meetings, in which we do our data gathering. We present to them a financial statement package. We present to them the full financial plan in the 3rd meeting, and then we present to them an implementation guideline as our 4th and final meeting. And what that is because we make recommendations all along the way and as part of the broader financial plan. But at the end of the day, it's a lot. And we know that. And so the implementation guideline just breaks it out into what you should be working on this month, next quarter, by year end, 2019 goals, 2020 goals. And we'll go out a number of years based on when we see things should be changing and shifting from the feedback they've given us. So that is the sort of end of our upfront plan. And then at that point, we close and we usually make a recommendation saying we think it would make sense for you guys to, call us if you need us. And at that point, we can have another conversation if it looks like they're honestly pretty independent and can very easily implement the plan. In other cases, we think we should work with you on an ongoing basis. This is our retainer model. It's an annual fee. We charge it monthly and, see if that makes the most sense. And then the last option is if there's really complex investment management that's needed, we will say, we would love to work with you on this. And this is what that would look like. And for most of our investment management clients for, $1 million in assets and up, we roll the financial planning fee all up into their percentage AUM. For less than, we typically still do charge that ongoing monthly retainer, and then a percentage of AUM as well.
So what is the monthly ongoing fee?
150 to 250.
150 to 250. And is that really based on single versus couple, or is there other things that go into determining where they fall on that range?
Yeah, it's complexity. So most of the time our couples are at 250 and most of our individuals are at 150. But sometimes there are cases that we see reasons that should be addressed differently, and we'll make those accommodations.
And then you are also managing investments, it sounds like. So how do you structure the fee, and sort of what's the platform service model that you use there?
Yeah, so we use Betterment, SEI, and then TD Ameritrade, and then AssetMark sort of as a third-party manager through TD. And again, it's case by case. We sort of think each of those fit different scenarios better than others. And again, a lot of it varies case by case, unfortunately. But Betterment works really well with our young folks just getting started, to have an automatic recurring savings model without, when they don't have a ton of AUM. And they can do other things as well, but that's an easy fit for us when we see that. And then SEI has really good tax managed strategies. So if we have large non-qualified accounts, we typically look to, make a fit there for them. And then TD and AssetMark, again, have a lot of other different competencies that sort of fit a number of other scenarios in between. So it just it's a case by case. We just want to make sure we're doing what's in the client's best interest, and it's what's their best interest ultimately guides that decision.
And we will charge a planning fee as well as an investment, percentage AUM, because we do believe that the client should understand these are two separate services that we're offering. Our AUM fees are lower. 40 basis points to 70 basis points, I think, is the most. I think we have some people at 100, but so we do charge both fees, once again, for clients less than $1 million.
So how do you manage having assets on 3 different platforms? Because I totally understand, each of those platforms may be more ideal for another, but that is a lot to manage, it seems like. Managing one custodial relationship feels like a lot sometimes. So how are you managing the 3 and keeping it all straight and being able to provide, reports and run your billing and all of those things efficiently?
They do all that, right? So they do all the reporting. AssetMark does all their own reporting, as does Betterment and SEI, and they do. They collect the fees on a quarterly basis. But Danna's awesome at managing a lot of stuff at once, so no problem for her.
That's just the answer, Danna.
The fact that we kept it to 3 to me is big. Like with the amount of ideas that come our way. So I don't know. I think it's.
She meant to say the amount of ideas that Rob has, because Rob will say, I heard about these new great people. We should really check them out. And Danna's like, no, we have 3 right now. We're going to keep it to 3.
But then he gets so excited about the next one he's like, let's just move everyone over to this and then everyone over to that. And I'm like, that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense, So he just gets very excited about a lot of things at a lot of different times, especially when he has like a deadline. He gets extra excited about something completely unrelated to what's going on right now.
Well, yeah, because it's a good distraction. I totally understand.
Yes. So, we had tax deadlines and we're moving to office spaces. It's like always that way. So yeah, it's just, yeah.
So what are, looking back over the last 12, or I guess the last 5 years, now that you've been in business, 5 going on 6 years, can you share, do you have the numbers in front of you to share sort of revenue and expenses so that give folks sort of an idea of the path that you've taken, maybe just for the wealth management, or if you want to include tax, if that's easy to pull, just sort of what your year over year has been. Do you have those numbers in front of you?
Rob, do you want to jump into zero or do you want me to?
Yeah, I could do that.
So we're in 18. So 2013 through 2016, I believe, we had both businesses combined as one LLC. And then in 2016, in September, we split it.
Okay.
So to create Inspired Vision Accounting is the tax and accounting business, and Legacy Care Wealth is the financial planning business. So the numbers sort of skew, but I think, I don't know, Rob, you pulling it up?
Yep. All right, here we go.
Go for it.
So, we don't have any info for 2013. I don't know why that is.
Someone forgot to file their taxes. No.
Seriously. Who's their accountant? So, like Danna said, 14, 15, and 16 are both combined businesses. So we did $35,000 in revenue in 2014. 15 was 80. 16 was 132. Then we separated out the businesses, and the planning business in 17 was 116. And then we are on track this year to do 164. Is that what it said?
Okay. So it's been pretty, high growth, but pretty consistent, adding 30 to 40,000 of revenue, year over year.
Yeah.
So where do you see that going? What's the goal? You said you want to continue to grow and scale. Like, are you going to have 100 advisors working for you someday with, 10,000 clients and this big firm? Do you see something in between? Like, what are y'all trying to build here with each of the businesses?
We really think that the appeal for most of our clients is us. I mean, I'd like to think that. I think very highly of myself. Danna has to kind of constantly keep me grounded. But, we always want to be client facing. We're not so much going to bring in other advisors to work their own books, but it's really just kind of bring in the staff so that we can service more clients and really just be 100% client facing. I am, actually on the accounting side, we are doing that. I am not taking on personally anymore bookkeeping clients and really utilizing, outsourced solutions so that I could just be meeting with clients. So yeah, we do think that we can get this thing to our sweet spot. Well, Danna asked me the other day, I said $1 million, but in all reality, I think like $600,000 in revenue is kind of the target.
Okay. Danna, do you agree with that? Okay, that sounds low that sounds like you've talked Rob down.
I definitely have. Like, I thought he was going to say $1 million again.
Yeah, we call all those numbers Kitsis sanitized, and that sounds like a Danna sanitized number.
That's very fair. So yeah, I think 600 would be like a sweet spot. I think if we wanted to ramp it up, we could definitely get towards that $1 million, and we'll just sort of see where our lives evolve and take us and take the business. But to Rob's point, honestly, we have a lot of fun in the meetings with clients. Like, we like that part of it. And we walk out of almost every meeting, especially with our planning clients, the couples and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, I love them so much. Or I just love them. Oh, they're so cute.
She always says that.
It's great to love your clients.
Yeah. I look at him walking out of the meetings. He's like, I know you love them. And so that means a lot to us. Can we, of course, get other advisors and sort of build it out that way? Absolutely. And we may do that at some point. But I think for now, we're going to focus on getting that quality experience for us and for the clients towards that $600,000 revenue and see where our lives are and take it from there.
So I noticed on your website that you both have the ADPA designation, which is not one I am familiar with. Can you talk to me about what that designation is?
Yeah, that's the Accredited Domestic Partner Advisor designation.
Okay.
Which we got before. Well, we have we have a handful of clients that are living together, even have children together, buy homes together, but they never get married. So that would be a good reason as to why that domestic partnership designation does help solve for some of those more complex tax and estate planning situations. In particular, I think that's sort of the bulk of where a lot of that planning focuses on. But then there's, of course, other things that we would address. But at the time when we got that, it was before gay marriage was a legal thing. And actually, acknowledged legally. So that was also a big subset of our clients at the time, a lot of same-sex couples. So we thought that would be a good fit to continue to market ourselves in that direction. But at the same time, we haven't actually done very much with it, other than the fact that we, of course, did the exam, have maintained the designations, of course, and are happy to work with folks that are non-married couples.
Do you find there's still a lot of planning opportunities and planning challenges with unmarried couples that are cohabitating or combining finances and that sort of thing, but are choosing to not get married?
I think it's more complex than a traditional planning dynamic. So there's a lot of work to do around it and discuss, a lot of things to touch on and talk about to try to definitely make sure, even planning for retirement, you won't have the spousal Social Security benefit. And if we have someone who is not employed at the same level, there might be a little bit of management we need to do around there. Planning around a life event might be complex as well. So definitely a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah. And even just, from a more basic foundation of, maintaining separate finances and how do you manage the household expenses and, do you combine finances? We typically tell our clients, although, I made all the stupid mistakes and my father-in-law liked to remind me that I lived in sin with my girlfriend for a few years. We combined finances like the second we got out of college, despite not being married for another 4 or 5 years. So, but we encourage our clients not to do that. So then how do you pay all the combined finances, and setting up systems around that? So just even from a cash flow management, it does introduce some other complexities that need to be managed. And because we've done it so many times with unmarried couples, we can say, okay, this worked for some people. We have one client who invoices his partner he's supposed to do it every month, and he forgot for a few months, and then he sent a big invoice, and it kind of threw the partner's finances into a tailspin. And some just say it's a set amount every month, and it's not going to be exact, but it's okay. So it's just about opening up these conversations. And like Danna said earlier, so often couples are not the same person. So it's approaching it, from two different angles and finding a mutually agreed upon solution. So it's fun. I mean, we've had clients, unfortunately, we've had clients yelling at each other. We did break up one engagement as a result of not really our fault, but we did make them aware of.
It was not at all our fault, for the record. But it was a scenario of one partner saying, I have some debt. And then we actually start pulling records, and it was like, you have some debt, you have a lot of debt. How do we plan for this? And it started a lot of conversations from there. So yes.
Good conversations to have had before they got married.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But it's not uncommon that people say, well, are you guys financial planners or therapists, or financial planners or marriage counselors? Because a lot of those conversations come up. And a lot of times Rob's like, oh, Danna, you have to be 90% of the meetings we're in together, but sometimes we just can't because of scheduling conflicts. And there's sometimes he's like, Dan, she's going to cry. Can you have to come with me to this one?
When there are tears, I need backup. I cannot go in there solo when there's tears.
And it happens. We really try to really bring everything to the table and talk a lot with our clients, really get to know them and understand what's driving them and driving those financial decisions. And so, yeah, it gets emotional. Money's tough. So we go there. Why do we even go down this line of inquiry? I forget what the original question was at this point.
Well, we were just chatting about the designation. Just curious what the designation was and how that work, if y'all are doing a lot of that work, and if, because those are specialties where some designations you can just buy and not learn anything and it doesn't provide value. Others you can actually learn something in the education process. So that was really where I was curious. And it sounds like that you learned a lot going through that in order to be able to work with, couples that are in that situation. So I can't believe how fast an hour has gone. As we're sort of coming to a close, I'll ask you both the final question, and I'll figure out who to pick on to make you answer first. But, you're 5 years into the business. You've been working together, now for these 5 years. Things are going great. If you look back, things haven't always been great, right? They sound really good now because you're through the oh crap phase, as I like to call it, of like, what did we do? But if you look back, it really hasn't always been rainbows and unicorns and this beautiful story. So, going back, if you think about the person that you were that was starting the firm 5 years ago, if you could go back and give that younger self a piece of advice, what do you think that piece of advice would be? And Danna, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I have no idea. It certainly has not been rainbows and unicorns. It certainly still is, even today. We have a lot of really tough conversations, and we have a lot of, Rob and I are so different. So, but it's always, we always come back to that same place. It just, there's a lot of tough stuff you have to work through to get there and to make sure we're on the same page and stuff like that. So it's not without its strife, but like Rob said earlier, knowing that there's that love and that trust that you can always count on. Whereas with some coworker that you might have, you don't have that part of it. So it's definitely not rainbows and unicorns, but we are incredibly proud of what we're building. What I would tell my younger self, I knew it would be tough, but I think we have had a lot more obstacles than I was ever counting on along the way. That honestly came from the personal side of life for us, stuff with our family members, moves, kids, things like that. And even pets. It's been a lot. And so I think I just would have told myself, my analytical self starting this had my spreadsheet of how everything's going to go. And it didn't, in a lot of ways it did, but in a lot of ways it really, really didn't. And so I think I would have just warned myself a little bit that it's going to go a little differently than A, B, C, D, E, and that's going to be okay, Danna. So that when it happened, I think it might not have jarred me quite so much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah. Rob,
how about you?
Definitely set aside a little bit more money when you launch the business, because, collecting a paycheck will not be an immediate thing. And always really invest the time in the processes, even initially when you have like all of 3 clients and efficiency is not really important, because as you do grow and expand, those first 3 clients probably will still be with you if you're doing it right. And, changing the whole script on them and, in the 4th year, just because you've gotten a lot busier, isn't something that they'll probably be amenable to. So really from the get-go, figure out how you want to implement things, and then, really invest in making sure that you're being efficient, even when you have tons of extra time.
Hey, Rob, what would you have told me when we first started this, now that we've gone through this?
Good question.
Wow.
Sorry.
Throwing him under the bus. Yeah. What recommendations would you have given each other?
Well, the recommendation I've always had for Danna and continue to have for her is to take a little more risk. And probably if you flip the script, she would say, you have to be a little bit more conservative and save a little more. But I do think that I pushed Danna on more than a few occasions outside of her comfort zone, which I think were probably necessary steps to get to where we are now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about the way I sold Raul on joining our team was basically you're getting on a rocket ship, and just be prepared, because like whether we're growing or we're not, being near me means you're on a rocket ship, right? Like we're going to be running full speed doing something fun, and just be prepared. And so I think what you said is awesome advice, but that the other needs to hear around just like what it means to be working with the other one, that you're both going to get pushed and pulled in directions that are uncomfortable at times. But the fact that that's what makes you uncomfortable, but that it works well together, that's really what's going to lead to long-term success, which is what's so exciting. Thank you both for taking the time to come on the show and share your awesome career story and how this firm has gotten started. I congratulate you on the success that you're having, because y'all are just absolutely rocking it. And I look forward to seeing how things continue to progress. So thanks again. Absolutely. Thank you for having us. We had a blast at the conference, and we appreciate the time. Fun fact, what do many financial advisors have in common? They're often terrible at doing their own bookkeeping, and more importantly, they don't enjoy it. Enter the Bean Team at FA Bean Counters, powered by XY Planning Network. There's no shame in falling behind in your books. We're all guilty of that from time to time. But if you're leaving money on the table because you haven't filed expenses correctly, you need the Bean Team. Start cleaning up your books with a free chart of accounts template. Visit www.fabeancounters.com/XYPN radio to download your copy today. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time. You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.